Welcome back and moving on to our second segment for today. Talking about economy or Egyptian economy, and we have to say that the Egyptian economy was able to confront many challenges that we have faced, whether we're talking about the COVID, whether we're talking about the Russian-Ukraine war, many challenges actually that we faced. And let me say that Egypt is considered to be one of the best countries that achieved high growth rate this year. Over the phone, we have Dr. Raouf Gaafar. He's a professor of economics. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, doctor.
Good morning, my dear.
So, first of all, tell us how do you see or your input when we talk about the growth rate in Egypt, especially during all the challenges we are facing right now?
This is the result of huge efforts that have been made over the last years, starting from the economic reforms, which were executed in an excellent way, and the will that the president, political will and the will of the people themselves. We've undergone some very, I should say, severe economic reforms, and this was the main reason our economy could sustain, as you mentioned, the crises that occurred over the last year, starting from the COVID, and now ending by the incident between and the war between Ukraine and Russia. And not only to sustain, but to continue growing a little less than predicted, but at least keeping the growth on the positive side. Now the predictions of the international institutions were that our growth should be in the neighborhood of 5.5%, but again, due to the efforts of the government and the will of the people, now we have just passed the 6% limit, which is in these days an achievement really to be proud of. So I repeat, we have gone through reforms, but very well studied, very well executed. Of course, if I may add, and it was not only that, but again, the directives were to increase the production, and this is exactly what we did, to increase the exports, and this is again exactly what we did, and on the other side, to decrease as much as possible the importation of non-necessary products and goods. So I think this is the path that we followed and kept our economy on this level of growth.
How far can we say that all the mega projects helped in this as well, especially when it comes to the infrastructure projects that took place?
Well, once again, I say the economic reforms were very well executed. The funds that we obtained were very well used. As you said, we have developed our infrastructure in a magnificent way. Mega projects, as you said, starting with the enlargement of the Suez Canal and the deepening of the Suez Canal, going into the major changes that happened in the field of electricity, for instance, in the field of highways, and other things. So, of course, mega projects helped in another way by employing a lot of people, therefore reducing the rate of unemployment, which again reflects on the betterment of the economy. So, of course, during the stage of reforms. As I said, usually the reform programs in the old days, I mean 10, 15, 20 years ago, were misused into projects that are not mega projects and do not serve the infrastructure of the country. This time, as I said, was immaculately used into the better of our country. And again, as I said, this is the reason why we kept growing and we could face the problems that unfortunately we had nothing to do with, but the problems that occurred and affected the whole world. And as you said in your words, Egypt is one of very few countries in the world that kept growing regardless of what was happening in the whole world.
I think also the most important part is that the Egyptian leadership was building on one hand and making more projects around the country, and on the other side providing more initiatives to make the balance and to be able to support and help all the Egyptian citizen with all his basic needs and building new cities and talking, of course, like Takaful and Karama, for example, initiative. So how far these initiatives were important?
First of all, I would love to mention that amid all the challenges that confronted us was the internal challenges. I mean, we were building with one hand, and we were fighting fanatism and terrorism from the other, and with the other. So this again was a great success, and we managed to do the two things in the same time. Of course, the leadership, the president and the administration, they can feel the normal Egyptian citizen, and having suffered a little bit through the implementation of the economic reforms, attention had to be given to the Egyptians. And this is how initiative after initiative, the most important of all was the Decent Life Initiative, of course, was directed again to the to improve the standard of living and the living conditions of the underprivileged, I should say, Egyptians, and by again making services available where they live, building new cities to decentralize the population, to offer the governmental services in these cities, reducing the movement from people from one place to the other just to have their paperwork done. These are all, I mean, things that one is proud of, because the idea was the human factor is important to the leadership, and they gave the Egyptian citizen the importance he deserves by simply making life easier for him. And once you make life easy, you can get more production. And this was a balance that was kept delicately, and we see the results, and we hope it continues into better and better results.
Doctor, I remember we talked a lot before about means of transportation in Egypt. And
Yes.
actually, it has been an integral part when it comes to if any of the investors would like to invest in Egypt, whether we're talking about local investors or foreign investors. Actually, it is very, very important that they learn more about the market. And one of the most important parts is means of transportation. And now we can say that really the transportation or means of transportation in Egypt has changed the map of the country?
Dramatically to the better, my dear. I mean, the quantity and the length and the quality of highways and roads that were built over the last 7-8 years cannot be compared to what was built since the beginning of history, I should say. Of course, transportation of goods from production units to the ports for exports is something extremely important. Having this kind of, as far as a network of roads and highways, reduce time and effort, of course, and help increase the exports, which again affects the economy in a direct way. Not only that, I like to mention that we are now in the process of building a completely new railway network that will help move people from wherever they live to wherever they work, but to transport goods. And we know that railway is one of the cheapest means of transportation. So, of course, what you said are integral parts of the infrastructures that are needed for any investor, whether, as you mentioned, local investor or a foreign investor. He wants to come, he wants to have an environment in which he can invest and make money. And of course, the infrastructure is very, very important, among which highways and means of transportation, if I may say. So, of course,
right.
Billions upon billions were poured into this direction because, as I said, the planning was done thoroughly, and following the steps of this planning, again, was executed very scientifically, if I should say, and this is something that is helping, and I'm sure it will attract a lot of investors. And as, again, the President mentioned, it is now time for the private sector to play a major role in the development of his country. And, of course, having this infrastructure will help a lot create the new environment for investors to start.
Right, Dr. Raouf Gaafar, Professor of Economics, thank you very much for joining us. With this, we come to the end of our breakfast show for today. Thank you all for joining us, and stay tuned for more coming up on Nile TV International.